What's up and welcome in. I'm Jay from Front Yard Fantasy, and today I'm here to give you two wide receivers that I think you need to be targeting in all your leagues. Two guys I consider must drafts for the 2022 season. Now, both of the players I'm going to be talking about are widely considered the wide receiver two on their current teams. But as we've seen in the modern pass-happy NFL, that doesn't mean that they're going to be wide receiver twos in fantasy. Before I go any further, I do want to say, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you give the video a like. And if you have any questions with your drafts coming up, drop them in the comments. Happy to answer. Happy to look over your teams. Give me a follow on Twitter at GMenJ. Happy to help you out in any way I can. First player I want to talk about is T. Higgins. Yes, Jamar Chase is on the team, who is one of the best young wide receivers in the entire NFL. It's going off the board anywhere from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 3, generally somewhere in the first round. Yes, it's deserved. He put up fantastic stats in his rookie year. T. Higgins isn't that far behind. He's currently going off the board as wide receiver 12, according to Fantasy Pros, going in the mid-30s. So you're looking at T. Higgins roughly around the third round. And his 15.6 points per game in 2021 was good enough for wide receiver 13 on the year. So he's going where his production was last season. He had 74 catches, over 1,000 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns in just 14 games. One thing I really like about T. Higgins is his usage in the red zone. Last season, he had 26% of the red zone targets for the Bengals. In 3 less games, he actually had 1 additional target compared to Jamar Chase and only 1 less touchdown in the red zone. His average depth of target does leave something to be desired. 12 yards, which was good enough for 26 wide receiver in the NFL. But his 9.9 yards per target was top 10, the 8th best for wide receivers. While some might see Jamar Chase as a wide receiver 1 and T. Higgins as a wide receiver 2, honestly, I see it as a 1A and 1B situation where these guys play different roles on these offenses. Yes, Jamar Chase had 128 targets compared to T. Higgins' 110. But you have to remember, T. Higgins missed 3 games with injury. T. Higgins actually outpaced on a target per game basis Jamar Chase, 7.9 to 7.5. That in reality is virtually a tie, but I bring that up to show the fact that both of these guys are highly targeted. Both of these guys are top options for Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase had 13 touchdowns compared to 6 for T. Higgins. I could definitely see a scenario this season where that evens out a little bit and you throw a few more touchdowns onto T. Higgins, 7, 8, 9, maybe he gets close to that 10 range. This is an explosive offense. Joe Burrow is a young stud quarterback who's continuing to get better. It would not be surprised to see both of these wide receivers over double digits for touchdowns. That could push T. Higgins up into the top 10. I definitely think there's a world that both of these players finish as a wide receiver 1, both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins has everything you're looking for in a wide receiver. He's a top 2 option on an elite offense. I expect the Bengals offense to be even better than they were last year. Joe Burrow is going to be another year removed from his injury. They spent a lot of money on the offensive line this offseason and improved it dramatically. T. Higgins works the middle of the field where Jamar Chase gets those short targets for like the bubble screens and things like that. He gets the deep plays. Now, T. Higgins is able to make those deep plays, get those deep targets, but Jamar Chase is obviously, that's more of the style of play that he has. Just because Jamar Chase had such a good season doesn't mean that T. Higgins isn't a viable option to potentially be a wide receiver 1. T. Higgins is somebody who, if you go running back heavy early, I would be more than comfortable having him as my wide receiver 1. I'm perfectly fine with going with the value in the middle rounds with wide receiver and having T. Higgins as your wide receiver 1. He shouldn't finish any worse than a high-end wide receiver 2. If he's able to build on the success that he had last year, throw in a few more touchdowns, this offense continues to improve. T. Higgins could wind up being a value and finish the season as a wide receiver 1. Now, the next player I want to talk about is on another explosive offense, seen as a wide receiver 2, Mike Williams for the LA Chargers. Even though he had a 2-point clunker in week 4, before he injured his knee in week 5, he was on an absolute tear. He averaged over 20 points a game. After those 4 games where he struggled a little bit, 6 points per game, started to get a little healthy, get more production on the field. Now, he had half of the 8 games over 15 points, multiple games over 20. Did have a few clunkers where it was under 10 points, but as you can see, as the season went along, as he started to get healthy, he started to get back in that production. After that initial 4-game stretch where he struggled after the injury, he started to turn it back on. Now, there were a few games that he had, I believe it was 3 games that he had under 10 points, but over half of the games for the rest of the season had over 15 points, multiple games over 20 points. And for a guy that's going in the 4th and 5th round with this type of upside, you really can't beat it. In 2 of his 3 seasons, Mike Williams has gone over 1,000 yards. Last year, he had 129 targets. He averaging 8 targets per game, which was 14th overall. 23 red zone targets. He was only 2 behind Keenan Allen, 8th in the NFL. Mike Williams caught 1,146 receiving yards, which was good for 11th most in the NFL. Like I was saying with T. Higgins, top 2 option, an elite offense. Now, one thing I like Mike Williams for over T. Higgins is I could see a scenario, and I don't think anybody would be shocked to see Mike Williams become the wide receiver 1 option for Justin Herbert. They showed at the beginning of the year they had that chemistry. Keenan Allen is 30 years old now. This is about the range where you do see wide receivers start to decline. Now, normally it's more of the 31, 32-year-old seasons, but nobody would be surprised to see Mike Williams take over Keenan Allen. Mike Williams was wide receiver 14 on a points per game basis, right behind T. Higgins, less than a half point per game behind Keenan Allen. He had more reception yards and more touchdowns than Keenan Allen. I honestly think this is going to be a scenario where last year Keenan Allen seemed to be the 1A to Mike Williams 1B. I think it's going to shift a little bit this year. Now, I think they're both going to be great. Again, like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, I think they're both guys who could finish as wide receiver 1 options. We've seen many times before where teams support 2 wide receiver 1s. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, they're 2 quarterbacks who are able to support those type of receivers. The offenses that they're on, they're going to air it out. 2 guys that I'm getting on every team I can, Mike Williams, T. Higgins. I don't see any scenario outside of injury where both of these guys don't finish at a minimum as a high-end wide receiver 2 with room to grow into a wide receiver 1. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you give the video a like. And if you have any questions with your drafts coming up, drop them in the comments.